Boy, the world feels like it's on fire right now, and it makes it really challenging for me to show up and talk about artists and their business. But I think this is actually a really poignant time to speak about you as an artist and just why I think it's so important that you show up right now. Because I know for most of us, we're empaths. Like, we feel a lot of things, and that can cause us to want to hide. And I think there's opportunities here for us to do something really important, which is allow people to see the world and themselves differently. This is what I think artists are supposed to do, is like put things in a different perspective, in a different lens for others. And so that's what I want to talk about, is how your work, how you as an artist and your mission as an artist has the opportunity to literally change people's lives. Even in a time when the world seems to be at each other's throats, and maybe especially at this time. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Stop the Starving Artist podcast. My name is Lennon Bone. I'm so glad to have you here today. We're not going to celebrate financial wins today, because there's nothing in me that feels good about talking about money when there's so much tragedy that happened in the last week. We saw so much. We saw in the last little bit, we've seen a woman get stabbed to death. We've seen a school shooting. We've seen an assassination. We've seen all of these things, not to mention all the tragedies that are happening all over the world right now. I mean, there's so much going on, and there's so much expectation from one another to have everything in our peripheral at all times. And it's really challenging. It's really, really challenging. And so if you're feeling a weight like I'm feeling it, I just want to say, I get it, and at the same time, maybe there's an option on how we can share things in a way that doesn't create more division, but brings people together. Am I sure that that's the case? Not at all. I'm very unsure about a lot of things today as I make this video, but I'm going to do my best to articulate it because it feels important to try. So I want to start by giving you some context about me and why I think of these things the way I think about them, because I believe that we live in a world that misses context. I think we live in a world where, I know we live in a world where 60% of news articles that are posted on the internet are posted without someone even clicking and reading it. We see a lot of things where there's not actual context, right? And so we create a lot of stories in our mind because we don't have that context. Some of you judge me based solely on these videos, and why wouldn't you? It's all the context that you have. But the truth is that, your brain is trying to piece together my story. And it's what will happen to you in your art business, right? People will try to piece together your story enough that they feel like they can make a decision whether they want to like you or want to not like you, or they want to be indifferent and just move on. And this is just the way that we process things. But, in my lifetime, I have had, just like everyone, my share of challenging things. My mom was an alcoholic, and the unfortunate truth is that she was in abusive relationship after abusive relationship after abusive relationship my entire childhood. I had to move many times. I would come back. I experienced her getting pushed off of a 6-foot porch by one of her boyfriend's ex-girlfriends and breaking both of her arms, me having to walk her to the police station because no one there would even acknowledge what had happened. including her boyfriend, and her having, big pins in her arms, and her being beat like while she had these pins in her arms, and me being there while this is happening. I saw her put a gun to a guy's head. I saw people stalk us. I saw all kinds of crazy things where it would be, and for many years, it was very easy to be a victim, to be reminded that, like, me being mad about these things, me being sad about these things is justified, because it is, right? Crappy things that happened, and it's justified to say, like, hey, you feel mad about that? Like, makes total sense, right? But I also realized at some point that me being angry about that wasn't serving anyone. In my high school years, I was very mean to some people. I was very rude. I was a kind of an asshole, to be honest. And there's still a part of me that sneaks out sometimes when I get some trolls. I will tend to, lash back a little bit. I'm trying to get better about it, right? But these are lingering parts of, when you don't feel like you can actually trust a lot of people, and you're finally in a position in your life where you feel like, you have some sort of say, you react in certain ways. And what's interesting, right, is that I believe that's what we're all experiencing, because it's true. We all have context and things in our life that cause us to react to things the way that we are reacting to them as the world is right now. So the way it works, or the way I see it, is we have what I call like these 4 R's, right? So the first one is that you receive something. You receive some sort of action that happened to you. You receive some sort of information. And then you have a reaction to that information. And that reaction is first an internal reaction, or a reaction in the body. It could be a pain in your body or a feeling that you have. And that causes an external reaction. So a very simple version of this might be someone comes up and punches you. You have received that, right? You have an internal reaction of pain, frustration, anger, fear, and then you have an external reaction to punch the person back. And I think there's many times in our life, and I want to reiterate right here that nothing in our life is black and white. Nothing. I know that some of you will want to hear something that I say, and you'll say, well, not in this instance. And you're right, not in that instance. Whatever you think, right? Like, I get it. I want you to hear that I am not thinking in absolutes. I want you to understand that I'm using specific words like most times or often for a reason, because I know that there are always circumstances where this may not be the case, and I get that, okay? So, I think most times we receive something, we react to it internally, and we have an opportunity to then research our reaction, our internal reaction. Meaning, why do I feel this way? What am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? Is there a story behind this that is causing me to have this feeling? And when we take time to research that initial reaction, many times it will cause us to have a different external reaction, right? So if we see someone come up and take a swing at us, we may realize as we have a reaction, right? If we research that reaction, we may look and see like, oh, this person is actually just super, super drunk or whatever, I don't know. Or, they've mistook me for someone else. And for some of us, right, we may then react differently. Now, why is this pertinent to the conversation? Because when I think about artists and what artists do so well is you allow people to see themselves and the world differently. So you give people an opportunity to research their reaction, to research that internal thing that they're feeling in their body, their feelings, the things that they're seeing, right? And that, I do believe, affects how they react externally. I just believe this, right? I think art is one of those things where it's like, whether it's a song, whether it's a painting, whether it's a photograph, whether it's a story, whether it's a piece of content, whether it's the way you interact with someone in a supermarket. You know, I say it all the time. This came from Seth Godin, I believe, but he says art is an act of courage. It is something we do to create change in someone else. It is an act of courage. So the painting is not art, right? The act of painting is the art. The painting itself is what is left, right? It is the proof that that act has occurred. Being in a supermarket, seeing someone obviously having a bad day, you know, if you take an action that feels a little scary to like speak up to them and maybe breathe a little life into them, that's going to change them, right? And it takes courage to do that. And their reaction, maybe them having a better day or smiling, like that is proof. You see what I mean? I hope. And so this is the power that I believe artists have, and why I think right now it is more important than ever, because so many people have feelings that are happening, reactions that are happening internally, and they are, quite frankly, not taking the time to research why these feelings are happening. And in many instances, not even taking the time to research the thing that they're receiving, right? So like 60% of links that are posted on the internet, news, whatever, they're posted without even being read. That's crazy. 60% of things that are posted on the internet are posted without even being read. People are just posting because of the headline. What kind of ramifications do you think that has on us as people? Because the media itself, you know, this is where I stand on the media. I think the media's job is to create division. I really believe that. Because the more they create division, the more people click on their stuff, the more people buy into their sources, the more people have the opportunity to feel justified. Because the media, especially now more than ever, gives only bits of context. And I've researched enough things to know that like there are pieces of the story that are nearly always missing, right? And it makes me super sad. And it's really hard to deal with that because we don't know what's real. We don't know what is fake, right? And I'm not talking about like the way Trump yells fake news at everything. Like, it's not that kind of thing, you know. And for the record, I did not vote for Trump. I have a lot of issues with Trump. I also think there are a lot of things that we don't know about Trump and why he is who he is. There's context that's missing in the way that causes me to perceive him a certain way. And there's also a lot of things that are thrown at me that cause me to have a reaction about him, right? I feel the same way about the church. I myself am a Christian, but I don't like saying that out loud because there are so many things about the church that I do not like. You know, I don't understand how we can have something that talks about the most important thing that we can do is love someone, and yet we can then push someone out the door because of their sexual preference. I don't believe in that, right? And so it's hard for me to call myself a Christian. And it's hard for me to call myself a Democrat or a liberal because I'm not. In the way that I see a lot of liberals and Democrats reacting right now, in a very unhealthy way, meaning they're not taking time to research, right? They're not taking time to research themselves and their own feelings, why they're feeling this way, and then choosing to make an action. And you might not agree with that. That's totally okay, right? Again, like this is part of the thing that I think is so important, is that we can be able to have conversations about things. And why I want to actually make this video is because I want you to see where I'm coming from, because I think it's important. I think it's important if you're considering working with me or knowing, getting, like being a part of my world. I actually want you to know the kind of person I am and where I stand, so that you can make a decision on how you want to be involved, or if you want to be involved in, this, whatever this world is that I'm, generating here, this little community, right? I think that's important. So, the reason that's also important to me, this idea of examination or research on your feelings and all these things, is twofold. Because when I talk about this experience that I had with my mom, I have the opportunity to blame them, or I have the opportunity to look inward. And when I look inward and I see the whole context of everything that's happening, I start to go, oh, okay, this isn't the whole piece of this isn't the whole piece of the pie. There's a lot of things at play here. And then that changes the way I see the world. It changes how I react externally. When I no longer feel like I'm the victim, right, then I can change the way I act. And here is what this all boils down to. You have only so much energy in your life to do the thing that you are put here to do, whatever that is, right? And this isn't me trying to be spiritual. Not trying to convince anybody of anything. You just know that you feel something that says, I want to be an artist, right? This feels important. I want to help people see the world differently. This feels important. If that feels important to you, then that's what I mean when I say, you've been put here to do this thing. Cool. If we look at it like that, you only have so much energy to give to that. And when we are constantly in a world of people reacting externally without examining those reactions, then we are just passing down anger and fear and frustration, anger and fear and frustration. We're not actually doing any good, because the more anger and fear and frustration that is in your circle, the less energy you will have. That takes your energy away. Like, tell me if it's true, right? That when you show up in a room full of people that are just bitching all the time about something, right? Maybe it's a family reunion. We've all been to those where people just complain. That doesn't give to you, right? It creates more frustration and anger, even if it's not about the same things. You may start to get frustrated or angry at them. You may start to resent them. And so, in any relationship, we have to be aware of the energy that we're giving and getting from it. And a relationship isn't just a person. We can have a relationship to a community. We can have a relationship to an idea. We can have a relationship to, all kinds of things. And so we have to examine that relationship. And in the past, when my wife and I we were having some really hard times. And all of it was stemmed from neither of us being willing to examine ourselves long enough to then eventually get to the point of understanding someone else's point of view, or being willing to try to understand. I don't have to agree with my wife's perspective on everything, but that doesn't make me angry anymore, right? It doesn't make me frustrated, because we're not fighting to change someone's mind. We're fighting to figure out how we can do the most good together. I hope this makes sense. And I do believe that when you, as an artist, get someone to examine themselves inwardly, it will change how they react externally. And when it changes how they react externally, it will change how someone else reacts externally, because that is the energy that they're putting into the world. And it's kind of the reverse of the family reunion situation. When you're around someone, like I had an Uber ride last night, and it was the first time I've had a husband and wife. It was kind of weird. They were both in the car with me, and it was kind of strange because I was like, oh, this is weird. And I immediately felt like kind of off and was like, oh, I don't really like this. Like, I wish it was just one person so I don't feel obligated to talk. And so I just made kind of a light comment like, hey, so y'all are like the first team Uber drivers I've ever seen. Like, what, is this like a thing? Like, tell me more about it. And we just kind of got into this conversation, and their energy was so high, their mood was so good that it was contagious. Like, I walked out of there being like, wow, that was really cool. What a cool experience, something different. Like, the energy that we put out there is contagious. And so it's very, very important that we are paying attention and examining and researching the reactions that we have, so that those internal reactions, so that our external reactions give something back that is worth something, that is valuable, right? And I want to now acknowledge the fact that this is not easy, because there's going to be people that in life that just refuse to interact in that way. They refuse to do that, and that's okay. I do think what we get to is this point where, we can only go to the people that are willing and ready to accept that, and then also being willing to understand and respect the fact that like someone else just isn't there, and that's okay. When I talk about some of these things to friends and family, they're not ready for it. They just don't get it. It's like, well, whatever. Fine. That's totally fine. And that's the journey that they're on. And what this does is this allows me, if I even think about the harm that I see done to friends or family or whatever, or people that have differing lifestyle choices, and I see harm being done to them, I can react out of anger, and that could be considered justified anger. But what I do see is that if I just do that, I'm actually wasting a lot of energy. It's not allowing me to look, like when I stop and I examine and I research like why this anger exists, and I start to open it up, it actually gives me more energy to go to do the thing that matters, right? Because, for instance, a very, very simple version of this is like, if I feel a certain way about, people, LGBTQ community, for instance, right? If I feel a certain way about that, I want to help that community. I can go and I can point fingers and complain and spread more hate or anger, or I can say, okay, cool, this is terrible. There are people that are very qualified to do more good than I am, to spread more awareness than I am. Maybe my best effort is to go and be in a position of joy and goodness and great gratitude so that I can go do my job and make more money, so I can give money to the people that are more qualified to handle this than I am. And also in my local backyard, saying like, how can I be there for those people if they need it? And again, we go back to this thing where I said earlier, it's like not everything's black or white. If someone comes at someone that I love and care for, obviously I'm going to do everything I can to take care of them and to protect them, right? In a physical way, if that's what is needed. But it's just understanding that there's always a sliding scale, and it very rarely gets to that level. At least that's the instance that I've seen in my life. And I know that for some of you that may not be the case. So I also see that this is not black and white. We're all living in a different perspective, right? So I really hope that just something in here is helpful to see like how what you do and what you say as an artist allows someone to reflect more on themselves and really does make a difference for the world. If you don't agree, that's totally okay. I'm totally fine with that. And I just want to say that if you felt like someone has dismissed you because of the color of your skin or because of who you love, or if they've dismissed you because of mistakes that you've made in the past, that you've now tried to write, if they've dismissed you because of something you said on Facebook, if they've dismissed you because you are affiliated with a certain political party and therefore they've lumped you in with what their understanding is of you, I'm sorry that that's happened. I really am. And I hate that that's where we're at right now in a lot of ways. But we get the opportunity to research those feelings and those dismissals and then hopefully give something externally that brings more good, more love, more joy to the world, because I think it's really, really important right now. I think that's all I can handle on this. I hope something was coherent. We'll be back to talking about business, I'm sure. So, but this felt really important. So I'm sending everybody so much love. Don't forget, you don't make art, you are the art. I'll see you next time.